Welcome to the Banega Swasth India podcast. Our focus this season is One Health, One Planet, One Future. Our aim is health for all and leaving no one behind because Swasth Bharat is Sampann Bharat. Persons with disabilities are the world's largest minority. They are disabled not just by their bodies but by society as well. The United Nations has called to leave no one behind, contained in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Inclusion of persons with disability is key. I'm Ambika Singh Kama, and today we have with us musician, filmmaker, entrepreneur, author, sound engineer and computer scientist Dr. Rupam Sarmah. Through his film One Little Finger, Dr. Sarmah has taken a step towards including persons with disabilities into mainstream cinema. Thank you so much, Dr. Sarmah, for joining us today.
Hello, Ambika. I'm so grateful to you. Namaste and the TV for having me and covering our story. Thank you.
February is the month of love, but love is not just about romance, it's also about empathy and care. On Banega Swasth India, we have dedicated the month of February to the love that doesn't see persons with disabilities as a burden. Inclusion is the key, and you have set an example of the same by casting over 80 children and adults with disabilities in your film One Little Finger. The film has over 30 laurels in its name. So, Dr. Rupam, tell us about the story.
Yes, Ambika, thank you for asking. One Little Finger, it's a narrative feature film with the theme ability and disability. So that was our theme. The story is about Reina, an American neurologist, who goes to India to explore and research music therapy, and she finds herself teaching children and adults with disabilities. Often the children with disabilities become victims of neglect, bullying, harassment, and Reina tries to bring them together through music and inspire them to challenge themselves through their abilities. The film shows how their lives are transformed. To me, it's not just a film, it's a movement to break the barriers of the stigma of disability. And all it takes is a change in our perspective, a change in our mindset. Disability is only what we perceive, ability is everything that we believe.
Right, the perception needs to change. What inspired you to actually make this film?
So it was a journey, I would say. I was inspired by the life stories of the people with disabilities and wanted to take on the challenge of learning more about them, telling their stories to the world and creating a platform for them to show their abilities, not disabilities. Before making this film, I worked on a number of projects related to, as a musician, frequency-based music and vibrations called Omkara. That was adopted in schools, in different special needs schools for stress relief, for depression. And my earlier research work was also artificial intelligence and autism. So as you can see, my background was involving with many projects related to that. So I was inspired and I came to know many of the organizations, children, parents, educational institutions, and I was intrigued to bring their life stories and challenges they face to the big screen in a positive way.
Yes.
And over 15% of world population live with some form of disability.
Yes.
And just in the United States, 1 out of 44 children is diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And people are disabled not just mentally, physically, and emotionally by society itself. And disabilities, it's not a charity. It's a human rights issue. And we have moral responsibility to help them, and we all rise by lifting others.
That's really well put. In fact, Dr. Rupam, as you said, it's a human rights issue. How challenging was it for you to make a film with 80 children and adults with disabilities? In fact, I was reading somewhere that it took you 5 years to complete the film.
Yes, it was quite challenging to start with many unknowns. As we had many children and young adults with various disabilities, that was a challenge, because of various disabilities. Many people had cerebral palsy, could have hearing impairment, visual impairment. They could not see, could not talk, and some of them has mental disabilities. and other forms of disabilities. So that was definitely a challenge for us. It took so long because we tried to understand them. I had a great team. We worked together as a team. I do not want to take all the credits. So we all worked together and trying to conduct some workshops and help them to train and teach them how to act, how to communicate, how to be in front of camera, and
Yeah.
many other those things that we try to teach them. And there's challenges coming from and a lot of hurdles that we have to go through. Um, I can share one of the stories that might be interesting to you.
Yes, of course,
There,
please.
and when we started this project and we approached some of the financiers, investors, and they liked the story, they said that yes, go for it. And we started making this film. Because I was writing a book before that, and they write this story, they write the screenplay. So while we were working on the project, and after seeing that the challenges that we have gone through, they did not like that. They said that it's going to fail and replace all the children with professional actors. Otherwise, they're not going to fund this. And I refused. I refused. I said, okay, the whole purpose of this film is ability and disability. If we
Yes,
want to hire professional actors, that defeats the purpose of this film. So I'm not going to do that.
absolutely.
So they walked out of it, and we continued, and that actually took more time than we anticipated.
With us, we also have one of the actors from the film, Sayomded Mukherjee, fondly known as Den. Den, you were born with a rare genetic disorder, dopamine responsive dystonia, as a result of which you were non-verbal till the age of 25. You have multiple disabilities, including dyslexia and deformities all over the body. Despite this, Den, you have essayed various roles, and today you are an author, award winning actor, and a radio jockey. Tell us about your acting debut.
So let me talk about some more about my disability. You are able to see my disability which is visible. But there are also certain non-visible disability or invisible disabilities which you are unable to see. I am a person with learning disability. I have dyslexia. People have read out to me and I have learned from listening. Now the biggest friend that I have is audiobooks. And during the cinema also I had faced the same problem. I have acted in a movie. So in that movie I had to kind of listen to the dialogues, remember, recall and deliver. With the grace of God, in Cincinnati Film Festival, I got the Best Actor award as well.
Dr. Sarma, what kind of challenges did you face while working with persons with disabilities? For instance, if you were directing a person with a hearing impairment, how would you give directions?
It was challenging, no doubt about it. So it was a learning curve for my team and me to understand each of them. As you said, someone who has the hearing impairment, how can we give direction? huh?
Yeah.
And it was an experiment for me. Just to give an example, Abhinaya, she's an actress from South India, and she cannot speak and she cannot hear. Um, Even with her hearing devices, she can hear only like a buzzing sound. She has no understanding of words, no understanding of modulation of words. She cannot hear song or anything like that. So it was a challenge. So, but thankfully, she can read words. This like simple English words she can write, she can read. And what we did, we presented her some words so that she understands. Say, cry. She knows what the crying means,
The
or
action.
read the actions.
Yeah.
So we had to find ways to communicate to her. And initially, I had challenges. I tried to use sign language that did not work well either in a film situation. And I realized that her technique was finding the vibrations. I did not understand that initially, but they have a strong capability of understanding or finding tuning with the right vibrations of people. If she touches you, she can feel your vibration. She can read your lips, lip syncing. That she can do.
You really understood the cost. Dr. Sarma, how important is it to empower people with disabilities?
Empowering means giving them independence. Take them out of the box so that they can do anything they want to do in this life. If we can let them do whatever they want to do, do not focus on the disabilities. Find things that they're passionate about, they love to do, and if we can, help them to get there, and that means giving them independence to do what they want to do. And of course we need to give them a reasonable platform to succeed. Give them reasonable accommodation in any situation, where it's a workforce or acting or the media field. We have to adjust to some extent. It's all about creating a better society, loving and inclusive society, as you said. People with disabilities have fewer opportunities to learn or get a job. And when I asked with many people, Dan, Jiza, and many others, they said, we want to be independent. We need to get a job. And most of them are underemployed or unemployed, as you see.
When we talk about inclusion, how can we ensure that persons with disabilities have access to resources and opportunities?
Yeah, it's a human rights issue, and we need to work together as a society. If we do not do anything, there is a cost of exclusion. There is a huge cost of exclusion. As you said earlier about GDP, yes, absolutely. If some percentage of 23 million disabled people in India join the workforce, or 15% of world population join the workforce, see what happens. They'll contribute to society as taxpayers and have a positive impact on GDP. In terms of, we need to raise awareness, create a competency-based education model. And I strongly believe that we need to have a non-traditional model, a competency-based educational model, so that we can train them with job-oriented skills and connect with employers and government systems, providing some reasonable accommodation for them to succeed. Government can take steps to build ramps in public places, and with advanced technology these days, with artificial intelligence, we can build assistive devices, that can definitely help them with whether it's prosthetics or hearing devices or visualization techniques.
Then, what kind of changes have you seen in the past 4 decades, and what more is needed to have an inclusive society in a true sense?
We know that we need inclusion in various spheres of life. Since last 4 decades, I have seen the change in positive way. But there is a long way to go, even now. In 80s, people are not at all aware. In 90s, people started to get aware about disabilities. In the new millennium, people started to understand a bit of disabilities. First decade of the millennium, people started to provide equality, talk about inclusion, and in this particular decade, I am personally looking for a headway in an inclusive society where more disabilities professionals are going to be developed, more inclusion are going to be made in the social sphere. Friendship would not see the barrier of disability. Love will not see the barrier of disability. And each and every aspect of life will be inclusive in its totality. Total egalitarian society is not only an aspiration, it is a possibility that I see in my lifetime to happen.
Dr. Sarma, you're working for an inclusive society through One Little Finger Global Foundation. Please tell us about the foundation.
We started this nonprofit foundation, and our goal is to create an inclusive platform for all, whether it's persons with disabilities or underserved communities or underprivileged communities. We work with all of them. And our main focus areas are three areas: education, media, and research. As I mentioned about education, and we need to provide and create a competency-based education to persons with
Yes.
disabilities and underserved communities. Who are unable to get proper education either due to financial reasons or lack of time or other reasons. So that's one. And the second one is the media. Um,
Yes.
we are a non-political organization. We work on media, means film, music, literature. We created an all-inclusive platform to help deserving artists to work on various different projects. We're currently working on a couple of projects supporting Cancer Foundation and another music project with children with disabilities.
Wonderful.
Uh, and the third one is the research. And I mentioned about the neuro research that is
Yes.
ongoing, and we're starting a counseling, music, and brain research center. We're delayed because of the COVID for last couple of years,
Yes.
but we're still continuing our neuro research, and we hope to experiment with various activities and music to see how we can stimulate neurons that could help with focus, attention, or early intervention with autism and mental depression.
That's wonderful. Wish you all the very best for your research, Dr. Sarmah, and thank you so much for joining us today. And then thank you for being a part of this conversation. That's it on the Banega Swasth India podcast this week. If you have comments, queries, or suggestions on the topic we discussed today, or issues you would like us to cover in future, please write to us on bsipodcast@ndtv.com. Remember, BSI stands for Banega Swasth India. You can also connect with us on Banega Swasth India handles on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and continue the conversation through the week. Till next week, this is Ambika Singh Kama signing off. Stay healthy, stay safe.